Welcome back to the channel. Today is going to be a very interesting video. When I originally got my Thunder laser, I knew one of the things that I wanted to do was to do photos. Little did I know that photos were going to be one of the top secrets in the laser world. Few people knew how to actually do photos really well, but the problem is that they were unwilling to share how they got the photos done. There are some videos out there explaining how to do the photos, but they never give all the information in order to do it. So in this video, I'm going to talk you through my process. Of course, if your machine is different or your material is different, your settings are also going to be different. So my settings will not necessarily work out for your machine, but I will explain how we got there. As you are watching this video, you will see that I made a lot of mistakes. I used a lot of material and I spent a lot of time trying to figure out how to get photos done. In total, it took about 27 hours. This does not include setting up any of the machines, learning any of the machines, or changing any of the heads. So let's get to it. You can see that I did make 2 photos with the regular head that comes with the machine. You can still make photos using that head, but they will not necessarily turn out as nicely if you had a different head. So the first thing you have to find online is what height your head needs to be from your project. There is so much information out there that none of it was accurate for what I was doing. Even 1 millimeter makes a huge difference. On average with my machine, I typically use between 3 and 5 millimeter height. This is the first photo I tried to create. When it was finished, I thought, hey, this isn't too bad. It seemed like I might be on the right track. So I changed heads to the photo head, keeping the settings exactly the same, and I did the photo again. At this time of the photo, I'm actually confused on why it actually looks worse when I'm using the head that is used for the photos. So I move on to more scrap wood and we try it again. The next 4 photos, I use the same head, trying different settings. Like I mentioned before, everybody will have different settings. So the first one I used Jarvis, and then I used grayscale. And then I had the same settings for everything else, such as height, brightness, contrast. The third and fourth photos have the same settings as each other. The only thing I did was change the brightness and the height of the laser. After these 4 photos, I'm like, heck, why not let's just try a slate coaster, being that I know what I'm doing. First attempt, it was bad. It looked like the negative photo. After it printed, I realized that I should have clicked negative in my settings, and then it would have transferred to the slate like a normal photo. So I went back into my settings, clicked negative, and I printed the photo. Yep, still looks like junk. As you can see, the settings for each medium is going to be different. For each photo, it's going to be different. For the type of wood, it's going to be different. At this point, I felt pretty confident with J&J's photo, so I moved to try a new photo. This one had a background. I wanted to keep this background, but I also wanted the people to work out well. The first attempt looked pretty decent, but I knew I could make it better. The second time around, I got better with colors, but the man's face is too dark and the woman's face is too light. At this point, I figured I'd try a photo without the background to see if I can work on just their faces. So this photo has no background, and you can actually see both faces fairly well. But it was at this point in the process where I'm extremely frustrated because people make it look like it's so easy to do. But really, it's one of the hardest things to successfully do on your laser, specifically the Thunder laser. I've decided at this point that people were deliberately leaving out key information in their videos in order for this to work out. We also have a tabletop laser called Laser Master 2. This is the very first laser I actually started playing with, and I realized that I really liked it. I didn't do too much on it other than just lines, but I thought, hey, let's just try this. So with the same settings I had on my Thunder laser, aside from the height, I started a print on the mini laser. With this first print, again, I'm using the same settings as I did on the Thunder, but only changing the height. After testing for several hours with all the different settings I could think of, I figured out how to do it for this photo, but I remember that each photo needs its own settings. So I found the right settings for the Schaller's photo. Then I tried it for J&J's photo. Looked pretty good. So I did several other photos just to make sure I knew what I was actually doing. At this point, I thought I was just doing the wrong settings on the Thunder, so I went back to the Thunder and messed around with the settings again to see if I could get them to look better. I ended up taking a larger piece of wood that was 6 millimeters thick, and I cut out a bunch of 4x4 squares with rounded edges. These are the same size of our slate coasters. After I spent several hours messing with all the settings again, the only thing that is exactly the same is the height with all of these. I know it's sped up, but at the end I show you the difference in all the settings and how they look. After I finished using the Thunder laser, I moved over to the mini laser and I repeated the same steps that I was using before when printing. Now we can look at the differences between the lasers. The process is the same if you are using the diode laser and if you're using the thunder laser. The only difference is the settings. First thing we're going to do is open up Lightburn. You're going to import your picture that you want to edit. Then you're going to go to the square on the left hand side and draw a little square, and it should be in the tool color, which are on the bottom two numbers, T1 and T2. You're going to unlock the measurements. You're going to type in whatever your width is and whatever your height is, and then lock the square. In my case, I'm doing 4x4 coasters. So I did 4x4 and then I locked it. My picture is in a vertical position, so I knew the width had to be 4 inches. So I'm going to click on my picture, go to width and click 4 and type 4. So you can see that I am trying to place it inside the orange square as best as I can. You can see that the orange square is either going to cut off the bottom or the top of the photo on this specific photo. When that's done, you're going to select the picture and the orange square and click apply mask to image. So it's going to crop that, and then you're going to do flatten image mask. And now it's only going to show you the 4x4 square or whatever size you decided to put in. Then you're going to go to adjust image. You're going to right click it every single time you need to change it. And here, these are your settings that you're going to mess with. Every photo is different. This is where you're going to have to test your own settings. So as you saw in the photos right before this, the settings are very different for each photo. You're just going to have to figure out what works best for your medium that you're using and what works best for what you like. You can also zoom in on each part and see what it's going to look like when printed. Okay, now the only thing that I'm going to change to go to the diode machine is the name of the laser. So in conclusion, it all depends on which laser you have and which medium you have and what your preference is.
You enjoyed.
So if you enjoyed, tell your friends about
The Laser Kings.